some of my other favorite days are the big spring touring days down on the east side where you're skiing 8,000 vert runs, from 13 plus to 14,000 feet down to the high desert in the sagebrush at 7,000 feet.
Episode 338, Skiing, Snowboarding, and Mountain Biking with Jeremy Benson. You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast, brought to you by 180 Tech. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening in to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Kurt here. Hey, today I have Jeremy Benson with us, and Jeremy is a sponsored skier. He's also a mountain bike racer. He's out in Tahoe, living the dream. And so Jeremy grew up in Connecticut, and after college, he and a bunch of his college buddies moved to Tahoe, and Jeremy has been there for quite a while now, sorting out how to live an adventure-based lifestyle. He's also the author of a couple of books, Backcountry, Ski and Snowboard Routes of California, and also Mountain Bike Tahoe. Both of these books came out this year, which is really awesome. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, man, it's our pleasure. So I got to hear the story, a little bit of the backstory. So you grew up in Connecticut, and you went to college, and then a bunch of your buddies and you came out to Tahoe. So that's bullet points, but what got you thinking Tahoe?
The Tahoe thing was sort of, it just sort of happened. A friend of mine in college, her older brother, was already living out in Lake Tahoe. And when it came time to sort of choose a Western destination to move, it sort of seemed most convenient to come to Tahoe because we sort of had a contact person there. So that was pretty much the main reason, actually.
Okay, so you said it came to be time for a Western destination. So why that? Why time for a Western destination?
Well, the group of friends that I moved out here with and myself, we were all really into skiing in college. Myself, I scheduled my class schedule around skiing as a student. And I was able to ski, up to 5 days a week as a full-time student in college. And when it came time to figure out what to do after college, I figured that I just wanted to ski for a season and do that and see what it was all about. I'd never really spent more than a week out west as a skier. So it seemed kind of like that glamorous, take a year and go skiing after school kind of thing, and decided to just go for it before I got a real job.
And so you're still in Tahoe now. How many years ago was that?
I moved out here in the fall of 2001, so I've been out here for a little over 16 years now.
16 years. So your 1 year in Tahoe, it kind of stuck, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. It 1 year in Tahoe is nowhere near enough. This place is, for me, it's paradise. It's incredible. It's so beautiful, and everything I like to do is happening right here. And I couldn't be happier living here.
That's cool. Well, what was your college degree, just out of curiosity?
Well, I started college as an engineering student. I wanted to design skis and things like that. After the first year of college, I decided that I didn't like working as hard as I possibly could and getting C's. And I wanted to ski a little bit more, so I changed my major to business. I did a little bit of a marketing focus in that, and that opened up a little more time for me to ski and play, and also got me into kind of marketing, and I did some internships in the ski industry and stuff when I was in college as well. So, it suited my interests pretty well at that time.
So you graduate from college and you say, okay, we got to go out west for a year and do this before life gets complicated, right?
Yeah.
And but not everybody feels like they can do that. Were there obstacles to overcome? to get out there?
It wasn't that hard. You have to kind of cut some ties. I had some summer jobs that summer, and I went home, spent like 2 weeks at home with my family, and pretty much just loaded up my old, beater pickup truck with virtually everything that I owned. So all my skis, my bikes, clothes, and a little bit of furniture. And we kind of caravanned across the country as a group. So one of the biggest obstacles was driving a 1988 Mazda pickup clear across the country in, 5 days. I wasn't quite sure it was going to make it, but it did. And beyond that, one of the biggest obstacles was just showing up in Tahoe with everything you own and kind of no real plan. You're sort of running on the seat of your pants at that point. It's hard to rent a place from across the country. And also just having a job lined up, things like that. You sort of need to be present to make those things happen. So there's definitely a little period of uncertainty just showing up out here, but we worked it all out.
Did you say an 88 Mazda?
Yeah, it was a 1988 Mazda pickup that I had, and that was 2001. So it wasn't, it was a 13-year-old truck at the time, but it was an East Coast truck, so it was all rusted out and
right.
and beat up,
Well, the reason I kind of chuckle at that is my own story. I graduated from college, and I the day after I graduated, jumped in my 1988 Bronco and headed to Colorado. And it was just kind of the same thing. It was like, you get here and you figure it out, because I wanted to be here,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so you did the same thing in Tahoe. I got to ask, though, what did your friends, what did your family say? Were they like, dude, what are you doing? Go get a job.
A little bit. My mom, definitely, my mom and my stepdad are both teachers. And, they had a little bit of concern about me, just going out and not getting a job right away. And that concern carried over for a number of years after the first year that I was out here.
And they're like, okay, your year's over. Your next year's over. Wait a minute, dude, it's 3 years now.
Yeah, and so on. So it just kind of, that went on and on. It definitely, there was a little bit of concern on the family level. My friends, a lot of them kind of understood. A number of them went straight into, office type jobs or things of that nature right out of school, and were clearly not as happy as I was doing what I was doing. And, I think there was maybe a little bit of jealousy at times, and it was definitely a different path than a lot of East Coast people tend to take right out of school,
Oh yeah, I get it.
It's it's a little bit like a regimented kind of, you go to high school, then you go to college, then you get a real job, and you raise a family. And I definitely didn't follow that set of instructions at all.
Did it surprise you a little bit when your 1 year turned into 16 years? You're kind of like, you know what? I guess here's the way to ask the question. Do you think you made the right choice? Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, I've been living a very happy and fulfilled life for the last 16 years. I'm not getting rich anytime soon, but for me, money's not the most important thing. My happiness has definitely been more important than having a super fancy car or a really big house. This is what I want to be doing with my life. So that's what I'm doing,
Wow. What do you think the biggest hurdle of establishing a life in a resort area like Tahoe? What do you think the biggest hurdle you had to overcome was over the years?
One of the biggest hurdles is kind of, making a living in these types of areas can be a challenge. And that's one of the biggest challenges for me, I think, is finding a job that pays you well enough to support yourself in an expensive area like, Tahoe or any other resort community, but also affords you the time to do the things you want to do while you live here. So I wouldn't live in a town like this if I couldn't play all the time. I'd probably choose to live somewhere else, because it's a sacrifice to live up here. There's, obviously the difficulty making money, but there's other things going. It's a sacrifice, but it's also a privilege to live up here. So, but yeah, it's just the kind of the career path. I've been in the service industry working as a waiter for probably the better part of the last 15 years, just because it gives me the income that I need and the schedule that I need to do what I do all the time.
That's a common theme, and I think it's awesome, because some people think that there's only one way to live life, and I say, well, wait a minute, that's probably not it. And some people say there are a lot of ways to live life, and then some people say, you know what, I want to define what makes me happy. Mm-hmm. Live a life and pursue a life that is rewarding to me, and you can't blame someone for going for it. So people that I talked to that made that call, and they've been living in the resort towns and stuff like that, it's just like you said, you got to do a lot of stuff. You got to be flexible. You got to be willing to work some jobs that may not be top wage earners, but man, the rewards that can come from that, the simple happiness and life experiences, those things are so valuable. So your benefits, let's talk about corporate salaries. There's always the salary plus the benefits, and usually the benefits are a little bit and the salary's a little bit more. You've turned that upside down, right?
Yeah,
you've got the benefits, man.
Yeah, the
benefits of the lifestyle that you love. That's really cool.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the reverse retirement program.
Well, I read a book the other day. A guy was talking about, why do we spend the best years of our lives trying to save enough so that someday we can go do what we want to do, and when that someday comes, we may not even be able to do what we want to do still, right?
Precisely. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the way I feel about it. I mean, I want to have the health and the ability to do these things now when I have the health and the physical ability.
Yeah.
So
I get it. Well, hey, describe Tahoe for us. For those of us who haven't been there much, tell us what it's like.
Well, Lake Tahoe is a beautiful alpine lake nestled in the northern Sierra Nevada mountains, kind of on the California-Nevada border. The lake sits at about 6,200 feet in elevation, and it's completely surrounded in mountains. It's gorgeous year-round. There's in the summer, it's incredibly beautiful, really pleasant temperatures. Doesn't rain very much here in the summer. And then in the winter, it varies from year to year, but the area is definitely prone to copious amounts of snowfall. Last winter, in fact, was the wettest winter in recorded history up here. And, there's 13 or so ski areas in the area, and more backcountry skiing than you can ever do in a lifetime. And then we're pretty ideally located to head north or south, throughout the Sierra Nevada to go and explore the mountains further as well.
Yeah, it's a cool central location. I saw a picture online just a little bit ago, and it was a wall of snow with something hanging on it or something. I kept looking, what is that? And I looked closer and I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's a ski lift. The snow was to the top of the ski lift, right? Yeah. And they had plowed so you could see the edges of the chairs sticking out of the snow a little bit. I was like, now that's some snow. That's some snow, Jeremy. That's craziness.
Yeah, it's last winter was one for the books for sure. It snowed and snowed and snowed. I can count on one hand or maybe two hands the number of days I didn't ski powder last year.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that is
pretty wild.
That is amazing. What is the snow like? Is it cold enough that you get the champagne powder, or is it often wet and heavier?
It definitely varies from storm to storm. We're considered to be pretty maritime here, so from time to time we do get that heavier, more dense snow, which when you live in this area, you kind of grow to like that. Actually, it's something you get used to and you really start to enjoy. But we also do get those really cold storms where you're getting snow over the shoulders and in the face every turn. So it definitely, it varies, and we kind of get it all. And yeah, it's really great.
So what time of the year does the season really start for you there?
Here the winter starts pretty much any time from sort of the end of October till about the beginning of December. It just sort of depends on the first couple winter storms and how cold they come through. So I've skied as early, as the beginning of October out here, and sometimes you wait until the beginning of December as well. So
how's this year shaping up?
So far we've had a little bit of snow up high. Probably 4 or 5 days ago, it snowed a little over a foot on the crest, and it rained down at lake level. Right now we have a little bit of a rainstorm going on, but it's definitely snowing on the higher peaks. So the resorts are starting to make a little bit of snow, and things are ramping up. So I think, Mammoth opened today, Mammoth Mountain further south, and then Boreal. So it's coming around. We just need the temps to drop a little bit, and it'll really start moving.
Yeah, you just described what we're going through right here in central Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That was a perfect description of what our early season had been so far. That's funny.
Yeah.
You are a sponsored skier, and I know
That's
that
correct.
helps. That's got to help. But what does that mean to be a sponsored skier, for starters?
Well, basically, I work with a variety of sponsors, and they give me free gear in exchange for me promoting their gear in a number of ways. Currently, social media is one of the biggest platforms for promoting, yourself or your sponsors. You kind of have the biggest reach, and it's one of the easiest ways to do that. Traditionally, it's been through working with photographers and getting your photo published, in magazines and in national and local print, or, working on video projects that are online or kind of wherever. For me, it's changed a bunch over the years. I've been doing this I've been sponsored for, around 15 years now. And, in the beginning, we didn't have Instagram and, things like that. So it was definitely more focused on working with photographers and getting published in magazines and things. But now the focus seems to be shifting away from that, and it's more on creating social media content and sharing that with your sponsors, and, keeping that timely and fresh and pretty constant.
Wild.
Yeah. And for me, another one of the things that I've always done with sponsors is kind of product development, product testing, kind of consultation on that sort of level as well, which has always been really interesting and really fun for me, because it's a cool process that I really enjoy being a part of.
Oh yeah, you get to try out the latest ideas. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So it's nice too, because, when you ski 100+ days a year, every year, you beat the crap out of your equipment regularly. Yeah. So whether it's outerwear, skis, or boots, you're definitely putting things through the ringer, and, you have a unique insight as to how that stuff works.
Right.
So you definitely share that with them, and help in the development process is really kind of fun.
I gotta kind of go back to the big story here. You moved to Tahoe with a bunch of friends, and you were going for a year, and then it turns into, so far, right, 16.
Yeah, exactly.
So how many of your friends stuck as well, or did they move on?
That's a good question. Actually, everyone I moved out here with is no longer living out here. A couple of them moved away after a year or two. A few of them stuck it out until just recently, but, people have kind of grown up and maybe grown out of the lifestyle and sort of moved on and trying to do, maybe more fulfilling things with their life in terms of work, especially. So yeah, I'm kind of the last man standing in that group anyway.
Well, I was kind of curious because not everybody can make it work, and not everybody should, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you've just shown us several ways that you've gone about making it work, and you worked in the food industry.
Mm-hmm.
You've written books. You've been a sponsored skier, and I think that's what it takes. You got to be able to pull from a lot of sources sometimes to build the lifestyle that you want, right?
Absolutely.
So, last man standing in Tahoe, but you're still loving it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it hasn't gotten old for me yet.
So, to be a sponsored skier, how good do you have to be?
I mean, it definitely. I'd like to think you have to be really good to be sponsored. I know, certainly the arena has sort of changed a little bit over the years, and now for some people it's just based on their social media reach, things of that nature. But for me, it was being able to make the prettiest turn in front of a camera, or shoot cool point of view videos and things like that. So I like to think that I'm a pretty talented skier. And I think my sponsors do as well. So, yeah, I mean, and then the people who really, truly make a living skiing, like, the big name pros who you might see in the current crop of ski movies. I mean, those people are generally at a level that is impressively high, at all times, whether it's just their form while skiing or hitting cliffs and jumps. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And living in a place like this, you get to meet and know a lot of those people. Some of them become, your friends, and you go skiing with them. And, it's interesting that you're out on a tour with like a Red Bull athlete, and
Right.
it's just so-and-so from around the bend, just lives down the street. So, but yeah, it's a high level, and yeah, I'm just trying to maintain that high level the older I get.
It's official. Winter has arrived, and Bentgate Mountaineering is prepared to help you get ready for your epic winter. Come check out the latest in alpine touring, telemark, NTN, and splitboarding gear. They have brands like Black Crows, DPS, Dynafit, G3, Icelantic, K2, Technica Blizzard, Arc'teryx, Mammoth, Solomon, Volley, Neversummer, Jones, and BCA. And you do need to be safe out there. Bentgate has the latest in avalanche safety gear. They have beacons, airbags, shovels, and probes, and they're ready to help you educate yourself on snow safety. They also rent out gear, so you can get your skis and your boots there, as well as your avalanche safety equipment. What's more, they also have free demo ski days at local resorts, so you can try out the latest gear. Now, how much fun does that sound? So swing by Bentgate in Golden, Colorado, or go to bentgate.com to find your new gear, as well as to get updates on all of their events. So you recently released 2 books.
That's correct.
I want to talk about the books, but before we dive into the books specifically, let's talk about the sports that the books are about a little bit. So let's talk about mountain biking first, and then we'll end with skiing since ski season's coming up. But you are also a mountain bike racer.
That is correct.
And so in April, you released Mountain Bike Tahoe, which is a guidebook that, let me see, it's 50 routes, right, around Tahoe?
Yep.
So tell us about mountain biking. How does that work out for you? I mean, some people are always looking for, what's my summer sport if I'm a skier in the wintertime? Is that how mountain biking got to you, or was it something else?
Yeah, pretty much. I started mountain biking when I was in my early teens. We had some trails around in Connecticut that were pretty fun, and we just did it from time to time. And when I went to college, I didn't really like running all that much, and I was definitely putting on a few pounds just partying in college and eating on the meal plan at at school and things like that. So I was like, man, what can I do to get some exercise that's more fun than running? And I learned that there was a network of trails kind of out the back of the campus of the school where I went. And I just kind of started riding my bike around those and exploring and figuring it out. And turns out it was a heck of a lot of fun, and sort of got hooked. And in college, as is now, it's sort of the thing that I do when I'm not skiing. So it's generally a pretty seamless transition between sort of the two sports. Like when ski season winds down, mountain bike season's just starting up, and vice versa. So, right now we're getting in our last rides of the year here in Tahoe, and, in a couple weeks we'll probably be backcountry skiing. So they really complement each other nicely. And typically the places where, at least in my experience, where you want to live to ski, there's also fantastic mountain biking. So it kind of works out.
Well, for those who have never tried it, how would you describe mountain biking? What's it like?
Mountain biking is, oh man, it is a ton of fun. It's it's one of my favorite things in the entire world to do. It's, man, hard to describe what it's like. For me, it's freedom. It's challenge. It's all kinds of things. And you can make it as easier or as difficult as you want. And, you basically, I'm a cross country rider. I like to pedal up mountains and ride down them. So, it's a real thrill. It's one of the most fun things to do in the entire world, and in my opinion, and I can't get enough of it. So describing what it's like is kind of challenging. I've never thought of just describing what mountain biking is like to somebody who hasn't done it, really.
Yeah. One of my sons was the first one to say to me, it's similar to skiing. I said, what? He goes, well, think about going down something and you're making these turns and you get into you really get into the groove, and it's just, you're flowing with it. And he compared it to that. And I was thinking, yeah, that's all good until you crash. There's no snow to slide on,
This is true. That's very true. And that's a good analogy, though. I mean, it does have a similar feel to skiing in a lot of ways.
Huh.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your mountain biking book then.
Excellent.
So you said that it's a guide to 50 different trails in the Tahoe area. How many miles of trails are there?
Ooh, gosh, there are hundreds of miles of mountain biking around here. The Tahoe Basin itself, the U.S. Forest Service, I believe, claims there's 194 miles of trails that are open to mountain bikes just in the Tahoe Basin. So then the book itself includes, most of those trails, but then also trails north of Tahoe in a town called Truckee. And then I laid out some other riding sort of in the vicinity of Tahoe that's kind of nearby, like within an hour. And I mean, there's 300-400 miles of mountain biking around here.
Wow. And
probably even more than that, really.
A friend of mine was just telling me this week how fun it is to do destination mountain biking. It's like, okay, throw your bike on your car and pick a place you want to go see and go there and mountain bike. So it's kind of like touring and vacation and all of that, but you do it with the mountain bike in mind. What I find is a challenge to that is you don't know anything about the trails when you go to a new place. It's like, well, how do I get to a trailhead, right? Where do I turn when the trail splits? And how do I get back again? Well, it sounds like a guidebook like what you've put out here might be a real resource for that.
Oh, precisely. And that was definitely the goal. And not even just for visitors. Certainly would be helpful for destination mountain bikers, of course, but even a lot of the locals who live around here, there's so much riding that a lot of people haven't branched out and experienced all of it. So it's definitely, for everyone, really. And I agree. I feel the same way. Like when I travel somewhere, to go riding, it's often a challenge to figure out where to go and what to expect once you get there. So that's definitely the goal with the book.
That's pretty cool. So how did you get to be the guy to write the book?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, mountain biking is kind of the yin to my skiing yang. So I bring the same approach to mountain biking as I do to skiing. I sort of do it obsessively, and it's what makes me happy when there isn't snow on the ground. So, working at night and kind of prioritizing time to go play in the daytime, I've just spent years and years and years just exploring all of the trails around here and trying to ride everything and see it all and do it all. And I've always had a little bit of a sort of a really good memory for finding my way places. And I memorize trails as I ride them. So like when I go back, I can tell people, there's a rock around that corner, and then you go over this little roll, and then, it's this odd, like, photographic memory that I have for that type of activity. And, just experience and time. I've spent so much time riding my bike on these trails around here that it's kind of absurd, actually.
Well, that's awesome. So what type of bike is your flavor of the year, or flavor of the month, or flavor of the week? What are you riding these days?
Oh, currently I have an Ibis Ripley LS, which is sort of a mid-travel 29-inch bike. And
so kind of an enduro bike?
Yeah, it's definitely an enduro style. I don't know if I'd call it an enduro bike. It's a trail bike for sure. So it's definitely, designed for rough, kind of all mountain riding, but it's very capable of climbing and going on those long, epics as well.
Okay. Well, we could do show after show after show on mountain biking, but
yeah.
What do you think's critical in a mountain bike for the kind of riding you like to do? Or let me rephrase it this way. What's the best kind of mountain bike for riding in Tahoe?
Oh man. Well, one of the things I always say is the best mountain bike is the one that you have.
Right.
And just getting out and using it and riding it is the key to it all. But, when you have the chance to really upgrade your bike and get kind of a fancy new bike, it's always worth the expense, in my opinion. So honestly, around here, dual suspension is pretty crucial. We have pretty rough and rocky trails, and modern bikes these days, they change so fast, and they're always just seem to be getting better. So, I mean, it's pretty much anything is good as long as you have a few inches of travel front and back and nice fat knobby tires. You'll be happy around here. Yeah.
Well, just so we can like fly through some stuff, I'm going to name something about a bike, and you give us a 1 to 10 how important you think it is. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. So front suspension.
That is a 10 in importance. That is absolutely necessary.
Okay. Rear suspension.
Also a 10.
Also a 10. Okay. What about lockouts for front suspension?
Not necessary, but definitely nice. I would say, around like a 5.
What about a lockout for the rear suspension?
I would put that a little higher in importance than lockout for the front. So I'd say maybe like a 7. It's nice for the extended climbs to lock that out for efficiency. Oh
yeah. Yeah. What about a dropper post?
Dropper post, I think, is one of the greatest inventions ever in the history of mountain biking.
Wow.
So I would say that is a 10.
Awesome.
I think dropper posts have changed the sport of mountain biking. It's my personal opinion. It's like, I don't know how we lived without them, and yet we did. And mountain biking was really fun without them, but it is a different ball game now.
Yeah. What about a little bit slacker frame geometry?
Yeah, geometry is definitely been changing a lot in recent years. And I think that the modern trend to slacken head tube angles and lower bottom brackets definitely makes for a more stable ride in a lot of situations. for me personally, I like a slack head tube, but it's not necessarily the right thing for everyone. So it depends on your riding style and where you ride, but I think it's pretty important for me personally.
Do you ride clipless pedals or platforms?
I ride clipless.
And have you ever tried the platforms? How would you compare them?
I have tried platforms. I like both, definitely, but I'm personally more comfortable and more used to riding clipped in.
Okay.
I believe it's a little more efficient energy wise too. And as a mountain bike racer, I'm always kind of looking for the edge. So, I prefer it, but I see where, I see both sides of the coin on the pedal thing.
All right. Well, I'm not going to dive much deeper, but rotation weight on your tires, how important is it to be light?
In a race situation, it's important to lighten the rotational weight, I think, on your wheels and tires. For durability purposes, I'd say, lighter isn't always better.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for that. That helps, actually.
Absolutely.
So there are going to be a lot of people who are like, man, he's talking about all the latest technology in bikes and all that kind of stuff. What's he talking about? Well, I think we just went down a pretty good punch list there.
There you go, yeah.
And of course, everyone always says lighter is better, but if you get a lighter bike, you're going to have a lighter pocketbook too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So there's a you can spend so much money on a bike these days, and you can also spend a reasonable amount of money on a bike and have just as much fun, I think, for a little bit of a weight penalty, and you'll be just as happy, I think.
Yeah, I think the cost benefit ratio starts to go down as the price of the bike goes up pretty fast,
Yeah.
I've been on some really great bikes and they're nice, but I don't want to spend the coins, so I have a ball on my bike and it's not that high end, but man, do I have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. It's no matter what you have, you're going to generally have a pretty good time.
Okay. So if someone's going to Tahoe, they want to go mountain biking, they want to know what to expect when they get there, and then they want to know how to find their way around once they do. The book is Mountain Bike Tahoe by Jeremy Benson.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I assume that's on Amazon?
It is available on Amazon, and it's available at kind of local retailers throughout this area. At bigger stores as well, Barnes & Nobles, REI. I believe I saw it in Costco. So
right on.
Yeah, it's all around.
We might be smack dab in the middle of winter these days, but spring is really just right around the corner. Make sure you've got one of our lightweight camp stoves ready to go in your pack for when the weather starts turning warmer. Both the 180 stove and the 180 flame are designed to burn the abundant wood fuels you find on the ground instead of requiring you to haul in heavy, messy camp fuels. Take a minute to head on over to our site at www.180tack.com to check out these American-made stoves that are built to last. You'll be helping us, and you'll be helping the Adventure Sports Podcast. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we got to shift gears, man. The season is changing. The snow's on the way. So now we got to talk about your backcountry ski and snowboard routes book. That this one just came out, October?
Yep. Yeah. Mid-October, finally shipped and arrived in all the local stores here. So it was very exciting for me to finally have this project be finished.
Man, it's got to take a ton of work. So what did it take to be the man to write the ski book?
Oh man, similar to being the man to write a mountain bike book. I've, like I said, I've definitely prioritized my recreational pursuits in my life. And one of the main driving forces in my entire life has been snow and skiing. It's sort of dictated kind of where I went to college, where I moved after college, and the fact that I've stayed here for so long has been because I love skiing, and I've just taken the time in my life to ski as much as I possibly can while I can, and I've definitely fallen deeply in love with backcountry skiing and pursue that almost exclusively. And, that's brought me all over the state of California to ski everywhere I possibly can. I really enjoy skiing lines and mountains that I've never been on before. Experiencing something new is what keeps it really interesting and fresh for me. So I've just been doing that for years and years and years. And then I've worked as a freelance writer over time as well. And Mountaineers Books was seeking somebody to write this specific book for them. And they spoke with a person, one of my editors from some other work, who recommended me as a person who might be able to write this book. So they kind of called me up out of the blue one day and asked me if I was interested in doing it. So. Wow.
So it's so cool when you get the publisher before you write the book. That works, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So it came as a little bit of a shock to me when I got that phone call. I wasn't really expecting anything like that. And, I got all kind of snowballed from there.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Isn't it fun when you do things that you love, and in the end it turns into an opportunity to promote what you love, as well as to earn back some of the expense that it costs you to continue to do what you love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. So backcountry ski and snowboard. Let's talk about the progression from alpine skiing to backcountry skiing. I know that a lot of people try alpine skiing because that's really available, Yeah.
But
then over time, it seems like a lot of people graduate and they go into the backcountry. So what was that like for you? Tell us that story.
For me, we started kind of backcountry skiing when I was in college. I went to St. Michael's College just outside of Burlington, Vermont. And at the time, we skied mostly at a resort called Stowe, which is probably one of the premier resorts on the East Coast. And they have open boundaries at the ski resort. So we would always, be heading out into the woods and skiing these runs through the trees. And there was some hiking you could do off the tops of the lifts, and you're skiing down these East Coast kind of creek gullies, which, was technically all backcountry skiing, and we got pretty into that in college. And so when I moved out to Tahoe, automatically that's kind of where my head was at. I was skiing at a resort called Alpine Meadows, and a lot of the terrain there you have to sort of hike along ridges to get to, and they had open boundaries as well, so you could hike beyond that boundary and go into the backcountry. And I was always just sort of looking for fresh snow and not crossing anyone's tracks, and it just kept kind of perpetuating itself that I just wanted to go where I hadn't been before, and so my eyes were wandering, and everything I saw around here I just kind of wanted to go and ski. So I got myself a backcountry setup that first year I lived out here, and found a bunch of friends who were interested in exploring just like me, and we sort of just headed out and tried to figure everything out for ourselves.
Wow. I always like to throw the warnings. We gotta do the backcountry ski warnings for people that don't know, because so many people alpine ski where actually the ski area is taking care of them as best as they can. When you go into the backcountry, it's all on you, right?
Absolutely, yep.
And just avalanche danger, right? Having enough backcountry skill that you can manage the terrain and not get yourself in too much trouble. Know how to get yourself out of a bind when you get into one.
Absolutely.
Having the right gear, so if you had to spend the night out there, you could.
Yeah.
What do you recommend?
I feel like there's a lot of prerequisites to backcountry skiing. Personally, I think that a relatively high ability level as a skier is a very important stepping stone to starting to backcountry ski. I feel like a lot of people nowadays are trying to skip that step and just go, like, oh, I'm an intermediate skier, I'm just going to start backcountry skiing. And you're like, well, there's the margin for error is a lot lower out there, so I like to try to express that I think it's definitely a more advanced skill level out in that type of situation. But also, avalanche education is crucial. Having the avalanche equipment and most importantly, knowing how to use it is a must. And definitely some first aid training is always huge, I think, as well, because, anything can happen. So, I think those are very important things that you want to have under your belt before you even really start exploring the backcountry.
So we're talking about a probe, a shovel, a beacon. What
Absolutely.
about the airbag?
Airbags, they're a great tool, I think. And I personally have one. I don't use it all the time, but I think airbags are something that you perhaps want to have and you absolutely never want to use.
Right.
So, that's sort of, decision making, I think, is one of the most important skills in backcountry skiing. And, if you ever take your equipment out of your bag for anything other than digging a pit, then, you've messed up on so many levels at that point that, that decision making should have prevented. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good way to say it. It really is. You want all that equipment that's in your bag there, all that Avi equipment. You want that stuff to be the emergency equipment, not the, this is how I do this every day equipment.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, for me, decision making is one of the most important parts of the whole game out there.
Well, unpack that a little bit for us. Decision making is kind of a broad term. What do you mean by that? What kind of decisions are we talking about? From the moment you wake up in the morning and you're going backcountry skiing that day, using the information that you have available to you, whether it's weather information, avalanche advisories, avalanche observations that you might find online. Taking this information that you have available to you and then plugging that into, the plan that you make for the day. That's the first step. And then as you get out there in the day, like just observing things around you, and making decisions according to the information that you have and what you see, and kind of, being safe based on that stuff. What's nuts about backcountry skiing is that you're kind of on the razor's edge a lot. The best terrain is the best avalanche terrain, right?
Typically, yep.
And then there's also that, what could you call it? Mountaineers talk about summit fever, where they get, they take too many chances to get to the summit experience, and good mountaineers have learned how to manage that. I think for backcountry skiing, it might be, I want a few more turns, or look at that POW right there, or, you know what I mean? It's the epic run fever maybe, and you have to have the wisdom,
Absolutely.
right? So how do you call it, man? How do you know when, no, that's a step too far, I'm not doing it?
I'm definitely a goal-oriented skier. Like I have, certain runs in mind that I want to do. And, for me, being healthy and being able to ski tomorrow is just as important as being able to ski today. And I try to call it as I see it when I'm out there and make decisions based on what's happening around me, and going home safe and seeing my wife, and, waking up tomorrow and being able to do it again is of the utmost importance to me. So, I've had my 15 minutes of wannabe pro skier fame, and now it's just about being out there and having fun and enjoying another day.
Yeah. Have you ever triggered a big slide?
I have triggered a lot of avalanches in my life. Yes, absolutely. And most of the time when I trigger avalanches, I do it on purpose. If you get to a windswept ridge, and you're thinking about skiing in this area. I drop cornices a lot and I kick slopes a lot, as my own personal stability tests. And you definitely trigger mostly lots of small avalanches. I don't believe I've triggered too many like huge and catastrophic ones.
Have you ever had an instance where you needed that airbag?
I personally have not, no. I've never been carried in an avalanche. I've never been buried in an avalanche. I've had friends who've died in avalanches, but me personally, I've, been relatively successful in avoiding those types of situations.
Well, I don't want to spend all our time on avalanches, but I just want everyone to know that it's a real thing. And when you see that amazing cache of powder, and you're going, oh yeah, let's go hit that. Well, do the math, figure it out, make sure you can do it safely, right? It's just not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the end, we're not in charge out there at all. We're simply passing through, and Mother Nature and just, those things, it's highly variable and it's definitely a game of chance. So you have to take as calculated of risks as you possibly can in those situations.
Sure. Well, describe what you would think of as a near perfect backcountry ski day to us, so people know what this is all about.
All right. Well, I live in Tahoe. I live, California. We're known for our sunny days and our big snowfalls. So, that being said, some of my favorite days are the storm days around here. Our snow is typically the lightest and fluffiest while it's still falling. And we have a lot of sheltered tree runs around here that we definitely like to frequent during storms. And those are definitely some of my favorite days. It snows out here inch or two an hour sometimes.
Wow.
And you can just be out there, with a couple friends in places that, are relatively safe, for skiing in those types of conditions, and just ski powder all day, and, your tracks are filling in every run. And those are definitely some of my dream days. But there's a lot of variety in California in terms of our skiing. We have volcanoes in the north, and, the mountains of Tahoe here, which top out around, 10,000 feet. And then the further south you head in the state, the larger the mountains get. So, some of my other favorite days are the big spring touring days down on the east side, where you're skiing 8,000 vert runs, from 13 plus to 14,000 feet down to the high desert in the sagebrush at 7,000 feet. So, the beauty and the size and the magnitude of the mountains down there is kind of overwhelming. And those experiences are always top in my book as well.
Wow. So let's go to your book a little bit, Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes. How many routes are documented in the book?
Ooh, we have, I think the final number is 99.
99.
I couldn't hit 100. I tried so hard.
99 is awesome, though. And you know what I love about that? Is it says, there's one more to be done. It kind of calls to you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's fun.
There's a million more to be done.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
So what can someone expect from this book? If they get the book, then are they going to get a lot of the Avi skill training from this book? Or are they really just getting this is the where and the how?
Well, this book is definitely not a substitute for any sort of backcountry training or avalanche training. In the beginning of the book, I do take some time to lay out, some essential gear and, basic skills that you should have, and definitely touch on avalanche safety. But those are the things that you definitely need to go out on your own and do. Definitely taking a course and getting the practical skills is, I think, very necessary to really absorb that type of information. So, kind of lay that out. And then I also provide a list of resources in this area where you can go and get that training on your own.
Right on. And then the bulk of the book is really describing the routes then.
Primarily, yeah. It's, you know, a lot of route descriptions. There's detailed maps and photographs as well for every route. You know, information to get to the trailheads. I try to put it all in there.
What about the decision making? You know, when you get to one of the routes that's in the book, conditions are so variable, man. When do you ski and when do you decide not to ski?
You know, the decision making is definitely left up to the end user, and you know it's just so dependent on weather, snowpack, variables like that you know you have to make that call on those days. So for me, I like to ski good conditions only. So I try to choose the routes accordingly based on the current weather and the current snowpack. So
okay,
you know, that's hopefully something people can. Those are skills that you sort of learn over time. And I included aspect information and things like that in there so that hopefully people can pick their routes based on, you know, those factors like weather and snowpack.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the range of risk and difficulty is going to be different from route to route. Do you have a broad breadth, or, you know, would you call this, well, here's your kind of beginner route and here's the super advanced route? Or are they all more level?
You know, I tried to provide a whole sort of spectrum of difficulty in the routes here, and, you know, and difficulty not only in like steepness and you know, things like that, but also in, you know, the size of a tour, for example, like the amount of vertical you might experience on a day. And I created a little bit of a rating scale, for both. So I rate the difficulty in, you know, effort as well as the difficulty in terrain, on two separate scales for each route. And I try to give a big spectrum. So, you know, there's shorter tours and then there's all day, you know, sufferfests as well as some overnight stuff as well.
Right on. And what about gear wise? Do you have to have like technical rock climbing or mountaineering gear for some of these routes, or can you skin up pretty much all of them?
You know, for the most part, there's almost nothing in my book that involves harnesses and ropes. So virtually everything is, you know, skins, or quite a few of them involve crampons and an ice axe. And then there's a couple options that are listed in here that you might want a rope for, but those are very few and far between.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, really approachable. Like, I wanted this book to not be just a list of like the most extreme things that you can go ski in this year. I wanted it to be something that has a lot of variety and, you know, a lot of routes that are approachable, kind of repeatable from year to year. You know, and just to sort of lay out what I think makes backcountry skiing in the state of California some of the best kind of in the entire world.
Right on. Well, it's a beautiful resource, man. Thanks for
Thank you.
Putting all your years of experience down so that other people can benefit from that. You know, that's
absolutely
so cool.
Yeah. And that's really what it was about for me. Was I've personally benefited so much from using ski guidebooks in my life. You know, that giving me, you know, sort of goals and, you know, a checklist of things to check out has really helped me explore and, you know, sort of prompted this in a lot of ways for me. So to have the opportunity to do that for other people was, definitely one that I couldn't pass up.
So the book is Backcountry Ski and Snowboard Routes, California by Jeremy Benson. Man, that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, hey, we're running out of time, Jeremy, but I'll bet you have a 1,000,001 stories about experiences that you've had skiing or mountain biking.
Mm-hmm.
Does something stand out that was especially impacting or funny that you'd like to share with us, just kind of as a parting shot?
It all kind of stands out to me, I've been so incredibly blessed in my life to just be able to pursue these sports in the way that I have. Like it completely boggles my mind that this is my life, just doing what I love. I couldn't be happier to be where I am in my life, and to have the opportunity to write these books and share those experiences with other people is really something that I'm amazed that I've had the opportunity to do, and I'm really happy just to be here right now.
I get it. I totally get it. Well, thanks so much for taking the time today to share with us what life in Tahoe is like, about your own personal journey and getting there and staying there, and about these books. I think it's really cool. We appreciate your time, man.
Of course, yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you bet. And for all of our listeners out there, wow, you can't beat these two sports. Skiing and snowboarding and mountain biking. Do that. Get out there. Have some fun.
Coming up on Thursday's episode, Will Collins returns to tell us the rest of the story about his canoe trip the length of the Mississippi River. Until then, get out and have some fun. You're not leaving yet, are you? Why don't you do yourself and us a favor and become a member of our Facebook group? In there, you can hear about some awesome adventures, learn how to do new ones, and share what you've been up to. And while you're on the web, do us a favor and go over to patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast and consider becoming a patron to help the show. You can also find a link to Patron at the top of our website at adventuresportspodcast.com. As always, thanks for listening, guys.